Hello and welcome to Avastone Technologies year-end webinar series. Today's series will focus on the year-end closing procedures for the fixed asset management product. Now please be aware that before you would follow any of these instructions on your live company database, make sure you have a backup of that company database. And also be aware that this presentation is for Microsoft Dynamics GP 2013 only. Now there are several steps that should be performed before performing the year-end closing in fixed assets. Microsoft has created year-end closing checklists, and Avastone Technologies has created year-end closing webinars to assist you with other modules as well as fixed assets. So before closing your fixed assets, please make sure you follow the instructions for closing your payables management. Also, please confirm that all of your fixed assets have been entered for the year. That includes transfers and retirements. Be sure that you've depreciated all of your assets for the current fiscal year. If all assets are not depreciated prior to processing the year-end close, depreciation amounts would be incorrect. And make sure you have performed the GL posting process. This step is optional if you don't post fixed asset transactions to your general ledger. We also recommend you run several reports before closing your year-end. The year-to-date depreciation amounts for the fiscal years are not kept in the fixed asset management system. Therefore, you must print any reports that contain this information before you close the year-end. The final two reports listed here are only necessary if your fixed asset setup contains more than one depreciation book. Now, before closing your fixed assets, be sure to set up your next year fixed asset calendar in Tools, Setup, Fixed Assets, Calendar. In our example, 2015 is our next year, so we've simply typed 2015 in the year field, and the periods of the year 2015 have populated. And we click the Save button to save the calendar of the new fiscal year. From the calendar screen, we click on the Quarters button to set up the quarters of the new year fixed asset calendar. In our example for 2015, you'll enter the start and end dates of each quarter of the new year, and the mid date will be calculated. After you've entered the dates for those 4 quarters, you'll click the Build Quarters button, and you'll click the Save button to save the quarters. So before you perform the closing fixed assets routine, guarantee that your next year's fixed asset calendar is built. Verify that the quarters are set up correctly for the next year's fixed asset calendar. Create a backup of your live company database, and you are now ready to perform the fixed assets year-end closing routine. So for closing the year-end, we'll head to Tools, Routines, Fixed Assets, Year-End. Your current year book, or books, if you have more than one depreciation book, should be listed in the Available Books box on the left side of your screen. The year should be the year that you're closing. If a different fiscal year book appears, you need to discontinue the year-end closing routine and determine what caused the incorrect year to be displayed. Once you're seeing the correct fiscal year books, you can highlight the books and insert them into the Selected Books window on the right. In our example, we selected the Sole Corporate 2014 book, and inserted it into the Selected Books field. Now you can close your books one at a time, or you can close them all together. Once you've got the selected books correct, you'll click the Continue button to close the year. Now, the closing process will start automatically unless you receive this error message stating that your assets have not been fully depreciated. You'll need to discontinue the year-end closing routine and finish calculating your current year depreciation before you close the year. So be sure to answer no to this dialog box if you do receive it. Now, once you are able to close the fiscal year successfully, you'd want to verify that the fields that should have changed through the year-end process have changed. So we'll step through each of those. And by confirming these fields in a random sample of your assets, you can be sure that your year-end close was successful. The first is the quantity field, which is part of the Asset General Information window. The quantity field gets copied to the Begin Quantity field, which you can view by clicking the blue expansion arrow on the quantity field. Also in the Asset General Information window, the year-to-date maintenance amount is cleared, and you can view this by clicking the blue expansion arrow on the last maintenance field. In the Asset Book window, the year-to-date depreciation amount is cleared. The Cost Basis field is copied to the Begin Year Cost field. The Life-to-Date depreciation field is copied to the Begin Reserve field, which you can view by clicking the blue expansion arrow on the Begin Year Cost field. And finally, the Salvage Value field is copied to the Begin Salvage field, which you can view by clicking the blue expansion arrow on the Begin Year Cost field. In addition to those asset fields that have changed, you'll also want to verify that your current book year is now your new fiscal year. So you'll find this in Tools, Setup, Fixed Assets, and Book Setup. The current fiscal year should have increased by 1, and in our example is now 2015. If all of those fields have changed as directed, you've had a successful fixed asset year-end close. Other than those items we just discussed, there is no other window or report generated to let you know that fixed assets was successful. So it is important that you do look at those fields for a random sample of your assets and also at the book setup field. Now, I've included 4 frequently asked questions that people have run into during the year-end close of fixed assets. And I'd suggest that you review these in advance of closing your live company database. Most issues in the fixed asset year-end close have to do with the calendar year. So as you can see, each of these questions and answers provide enough detail that if you do run into these issues, you can correct them and follow through with the closing. And again, make sure before you follow any of these instructions to have a backup of your live company database. And also be aware that these instructions are for Microsoft Dynamics GP 2013 only. So I'd like to thank you for viewing our presentation, and we're happy to work with you if you need further assistance.